Hello and welcome to another episode of NI on SG Diplomacy. In this episode, we will interview His Excellency Mr. Artis Bērtulis, Ambassador of the European Union to Singapore. Hello, Mr. Artis Bērtulis, Ambassador of the European Union to Singapore, and thank you so much for inviting me on this prestigious occasion.
Right. Thank you very much, Kibali, for your interest. First thing, congratulations that you started this journey, and I'm really excited to talk to you and to see how we can proceed and collaborate in the future as well.
Great. So this interview will be in 3 parts. The first one, your journey throughout a diplomatic career. The second one will be questions about European Union and Singapore relations. And the last one will be like some general questions. But first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We are in the pre-Easter period. We are extremely busy. We have had already many important events here in Singapore, many important encounters. This week has been very particularly important for me because it started with the meeting of the Prime Minister, and now I'm meeting you. So I mean, the spectrum is very wide. All of these contacts are great human touch. I mean, I would not calibrate them with the importance because meeting you today and talking to you and your audience is equally important to me as talking to the Prime Minister. Agenda may vary, but I'm very happy to be here. It's a sunny day today.
That's great. So, to begin with our first question, what is your journey throughout the diplomatical career?
All right. Okay, it started quite a few years ago. I started my diplomatic trip 35 years ago. This is my 6th station in the globe, and symbolically having 12 stars on the EU flag. This is my 12th ambassadorship. So it's to the President of the Republic. I submitted for the 12th time in my career the letters accrediting me as an ambassador now of the EU. But to say the truth, when I started, when I was growing up and educated in the country, which I would say fortunately doesn't exist anymore, because you may have heard of the big colonial power called Soviet Union, and which ceased to exist in 1991. So my country, I'm from north of Europe, from Latvia. So my country regained its independence in 1991. So then I started my early diplomatic first trips. I was educated. My background is in physics. Actually, I'm an engineer by education. But actually the winds of freedom and possibility to contribute to creation of my country from the very scratch. Maybe your grandparents here or elsewhere, like Singapore in '65, Latvia in 1991. So we were creating the country from the very scratch. And then I started my diplomatic career with the different postings. I've been 3 times posted in Europe. And then my last 3 postings were rather challenging. There were 3 very diverse ones. I was Latvian ambassador to India, but then I applied for the service in the European Union. So I went directly from India. I went to Western Africa, to the small country on the Atlantic coast, Guinea-Bissau, with a completely different reality, both from India and from Singapore. And then after 3 years in Guinea-Bissau, I landed here last September, and ever after I'm happily here. It's been quite a journey.
It's a beautiful journey. So right now you are ambassador to Singapore, and how do you think Singapore is an important place for the European Union?
We are very close partners. I think we, from the very early years of existence of Singapore, the EU technically is a bit older than the Singapore is, but the member states have been always there. But so the EU, it's also important to mention that this is the EU delegation, this is the EU institutions representation in the country. Then, of course, the EU is constituted by 27 member states. 20 of those member states are residing here, so we are closely cooperating. So this is EU institutions collaborating with the 20 member states here, but 27 member states elsewhere, 7 more being accredited from somewhere else. These relations have been always uphill, closer and closer. I think right now we are like-minded. We are striving for the same set of freedoms. We are breathing the spirit of entrepreneurial spirit of the people. We are trying to do the best for the education for young generation to hopefully to leave the world better place than it is right now. And actually there were high hopes maybe a few decades ago. Now there's some erosion in international system. So therefore it's even more and more important for us to work together. So we are definitely very closely interlinked on the trade and business. We have a massive trade exchange. It's 200 billion Singapore dollars a year. Here are operating from Singapore, in Singapore and from Singapore in the wider region. There are about 13,000 European enterprises who are functioning here. Equally, Singapore is very much exposed to the business and trade and investments with Europe, not only opening Singapore's 6 million market, but looking at the 450 million market in Europe. So it's also very important. So that and there are massive investments on either side, strong institutions and businesses from here, like Port Authority. They are investing in ports in Europe, and Singapore definitely is on the front line in that sense of our business cooperation. We are very strong in innovation, and whatever 21st century brings to us, looking about the climate change, greening, green energy, really leaving the place better than we got it, based only on the fossil fuels and carbon footprints. Now we are more in sustainability, and we have also a very serious digital agenda. We work on the close cooperation with the cybersecurity, with the communications in general, connectivity in general, anti-scamming, but also the space is entering into our agenda. Since yesterday, there is a functioning Singaporean space agency in this country, so we will be definitely trying to bridge with the European Space Agency their operations. We are very much committed to the international rule and rule of law and international order. This is a time when there are quite a few bigger powers are challenging us on different avenues, but therefore it's even more and more important that the big economic power, as is European Union, which consists of also smaller countries, including my own Latvia, which is only hardly 2 million. The territory-wise, we are much bigger than Singapore, but we are depopulated. We are only 2 million people. That we stick together and then we work together, actually trying to avert the potential damages that could be done to the functioning of international system. And then, of course, which is very close to my heart, and that's why I was very open to your initiative, talk to you, is the people-to-people contacts, because we are all human beings. We go from our past. We sit here today, and I'm sure that in next 4 years while I'm here, our paths will cross at least once more. So I think these are the relations reports that we are establishing, and that's very valuable. I think I cherish every moment of this direct contact with the people who are with their open minds and open heart.
Of course. So you told me you were a Latvian ambassador, and now you're a European Union ambassador. Can you please tell us what the difference is?
Difference definitely is the magnitude and scope. I think it's because it's Latvia being relatively, I mean, we are 109 years old this year, 108 years old this year. So, but our independence was interrupted by 50 years of Soviet-Russian occupation. So we are back on map for 35 years now, and we have rather limited diplomatic service. We have 45 embassies, and we don't have resident embassy here in Singapore, as Singapore doesn't have the embassy in Latvia. So therefore, the big difference is here that I work really on behalf, and my mandate is on behalf of the entire European Union. I've been my letters to the president were signed by the two presidents of the European Union, by the president of Commission von der Leyen and president of the Council Antonio Costa. So I have, this is the different level of authorization, let's say, because I work on behalf of the 27 member states and of EU institutions. My earlier experience, I mean, the small Latvia, it was very challenging to put it on map, especially like big countries like India, for instance, where you have 1.4 billion people who would hardly ever know anything of our even existence. So you really had to map it and to put it in the place. So it was always a little bit uphill battle to really find the avenues of the commonality of interest, so that people would be open and interested in us. Maybe that national perspective. Then, of course, you have all the small moments of pride. You have the either the super exciting results in the sports, or you have the high level cultural exchange that you can nationally associate. We don't have the EU's Olympic team,
No.
but we counted actually that the EU was in the recent, for instance, in the Winter Olympic Games, where Singapore was represented just only by one downhill skier, which was also rather ambitious already, that the EU was by far collectively winning the Olympic Games by the number of the gold medals or any other awards. So as a collective entity, of course, the Europe in that sense is very, very big, and it's very, very for me as coming from the relatively small EU member state. It's of course it's a big challenge, and it's very time is very fulfilling and actually very gratifying, with a lot of moments of pride for Europe, but also for that how strong our bridges between the regions, ASEAN, Southeast Asia, and Europe, or particularly between Singapore and Europe, how they have been evolving through the decades, and where we are right now. I mean, it's a really we are in the serious friendship, which has been tested by the also by the few rainy days when we were maybe facing similar challenges years ago. You were still younger, but we had pandemics a few years ago. It was a landlocked home operational functioning of enterprises, diplomacy, schools. So I think we have had those challenges in the past, but I think the building blocks are rock solid, and I'm very happy for where we are moving right now.
Great. So now we're going to head into the second part of the question, which are European Union and Singaporean relations. So first of all, in 2026, how would you describe the level of trade between Singapore and the European Union?
Yeah, as I mentioned already, we have the trade in general is regulated by the agreements, and our cornerstone or the pillar of our trade relations is the free trade agreement, which means that we are open to the free trade between Singapore and the European Union. This is the what I mentioned already earlier. This has brought this free trade agreement was signed and entered into force in 2019. So it's only relatively recent. So it's but in 7 years in being in force, it has really opened many doors for enterprises from both sides really to step up. Although their cooperation, as I mentioned, on the macro figures, it's huge. It's 200 billion. It's mind-boggling, 200 billion trade between us. We are also, since February of this year, we have enforced the digital trade agreement, which actually liberates everything. I mean, here you're exposed maybe to Amazon, and you can trade everything. You can do the pay now, this and that, all these systems, digital trade. But also there are other departments, if I may say so, or other files which are very important. This is the first thing: is the security on platforms. This is anti-scamming. This is also all the possible malwares or somebody who wants to damage the businesses, the privacy of people. A lot of effort here in the region is done in the anti-scamming, because unfortunately this is the malaise of this decade, let's say, that we have to collectively fight that. But also it brings a lots of positive agenda as well. We fight the dark sides, but we are celebrating the new ones, because it's the digital trade agreement is that, for instance, I can digitally sign the contract and send it, and digitally with a digital signature, and it will be recognized in the European Union, and vice versa. So which means, for instance, to buy the apartment in Europe, you don't have even to travel from Singapore anymore. You can do that, all that verified, digitally sound. So we are, in this sense, Singapore, of course, is the champion and the front runner in the region. So we are definitely trying to see how we could also see the other countries around Singapore, which are sizably much bigger, Indonesia, Malaysia, that they would follow the same pattern. So we are very much, I think that, of course, the 21st century will be ever more digital, but it will bring a lot of good things. It will bring us also a few dangers, but I think we are ready for the joint navigation into that. So I see that the massive really interest of the enterprises from both sides, and so I think it's going very well, and I'm here also to help and to open all the doors and build all the possible bridges.
So you mentioned free trade before between the EU and Singapore. Would you consider this as beneficial for trade?
No, it's absolutely, because I mean, if we are dive into any supermarket here, and you would see the essential thing, and it was tested during the pandemic times. I mean, the food security is one of the essential things. This is the energy. This is the fuel that we are going on. I mean, and there is a very wide. There's one thing is, of course, this pure basic food and food security, that you are the basic foods are there for the population to enjoy. The second thing is, of course, that the market is opened, so the people who have not yet traveled, for instance, to Europe, they could go in 39 floors below here into the supermarket and to see all the possible European products being there. So I think a part of those which are produced in the region or in the country itself. Europe is very big on and it's really beneficial, because in that sense, I mean, everybody can be more exposed to the different experiences. You see here in the landscape of catering, of the hawker markets and everything, which is, there's a national kitchen, but international, but then you get all the Italian, Spanish from Europeans, Greek restaurants. So I think they are very well furbished, and it's beneficial for the people to have a variety of choice. I think every choice is much better if you can enjoy it. In few weeks there will be the massive food fair here, where also Europe will be massively present. We are proud of what food can be produced in Europe. So of course we are in the global competition, but I think also the citizens of Singapore and the residents here are very open to the international winds, and they're very much open to the different experiences. So I think it's definitely enriching their experiences, and also it's, I think, commercially viable.
Great. So the European Union is a union and not a whole country. Mm-hmm. So how is this different compared to a nation's relation with Singapore?
Mm-hmm. No, this is very, very pertinent and very good question. It's good that you have discussed it earlier in earlier series already with some ambassadors of the European Union. Yes, there are some competencies, for instance, trade, trade negotiations are done by the European Commission, by the institution, vis-a-vis certain region or a bilateral partner, for instance, on behalf of the member states. Because, for instance, the smaller or mid-sized member states, like my own, perhaps would not have all the expertise to really put all the human resources and all the intellectual resources to negotiate trade deal with, for instance, with Singapore, with wider Southeast Asian region. So I think that's the one thing is definitely how it's different. It's also the governance, because of course there are layers of governance which member states by their own will have been transferring to the European institutions. There of course are domains which are absolutely like immigration policies, citizenship, parts of defense, which are definitely in the national states' hands. So it's a mixture. It's a very positive mixture, I think. That's why Europe, we call it a peace project. I think so far the Europe really of the ruins of the Second World War, and it was originating very early in 1950s. So we are for 80 years almost on the map as a union, slowly, gradually expanding. My country joined already, seems like a long time ago, 22 years ago in 2004. So we I think everybody has been benefiting. This has been really the very positive experience. The thing is then what will be the balance between the nation states, and we are slowly integrating more and more, but of course we are far away still from being the federation or confederation. Well, there are lots of movements, but I think we are still not yet ready for the United States of Europe.
Yeah. For example, the free trade agreements, were some nations against it?
In general, I think the troublesome waters that we have right now recently, maybe for the last year especially, I think of course there are national, let's say, if you ask about the European member states, maybe there are, of course, some sensitivities, because in some countries, like for instance, France, that maybe you know better, or Germany, there is very big agriculture sector, for instance, and they do across the spectrum. In France, they produce everything from wine and olive oil to dairy products and everything. So, of course, if we open our internal market to the big agricultural producer, and we recently, maybe you have followed that with your keen interest in international affairs, that a few weeks ago we signed a free trade agreement with Australia, which is the major European Union, Australia free trade agreement, which took 10 years to negotiate, because there were these sensitivities, for instance, in agriculture. How much Australian quality beef can land, how many tons of the beef can land in the Europe, thus maybe not allowing all the European produced beef to be being sold, which is actually not the case. I think we are ready to absorb more, because Australia is 20 million, Europe is 450 million, so I think the market is huge. So from a member states perspective, that's the one thing. On the other hand, let's say for internationally, there are very, very few isolationist countries, and they are definitely not the kind of the good boys in the class. Some of them are rather rough regimes, like North Korea or some other friends of theirs who are encapsulating their entire nation. They are definitely not open to the world for different reasons: democracy reasons, trade reasons, army, elites, and everything. Rough regimes, but everybody else otherwise, I try to count, but I think the EU as a European Union at the moment has about 72 countries already in the network of different sort of the trade arrangements, which means that the world globally thinks that sticking together and interacting is much better than being apart and divided.
Great. So we just finished part 2. So now we're going to head into the last part of the questions, part 3, which is general questions. So first of all, could you tell us about your average day?
All right. No, the average day is very, very diverse, because on my very average day before yesterday, I met the Prime Minister, and today I'm giving my one of the very few interviews that I have been giving here in Singapore so far. So you are also the breaking the ice in that sense. So definitely it's a following. I mean, it's a normal things. We follow what's happening. What are the news, of course. For you, possibly as a future diplomat or somebody who will know the diplomatic life from different aspects, it can also be economic diplomacy. I mean, the international businesses here are economic diplomats in a direct sense, or international artists or the sports people are in their own international. I mean, we are more and more opening and internationalizing. But of course, right now, the big difference from the times maybe when I started my diplomatic career is this so-called Twitter diplomacy or X diplomacy, that every morning I would scroll through my Twitter feed and to see what else has been said somewhere else, and what are the burning news, and actually you yourself have to be more self-controlling, so that you, in the moment of weakness, you don't say unnecessary things which then will be stay forever you have to be in the net, so you always have to be very kind of self-critical. So I would start the day with looking what's in the Straits Times, and then occasionally I would discover, and I will show you that there is something in the this is especially for you. Then I would find that in Business Times, the day before yesterday was my article, and I will dedicate it to you in this nice European letter.
Thank you so much.
so that was my job of my colleagues, and we collectively did it. So you will have the nice EU folder. So that was my day before yesterday. So then normally, I mean, we would see what the day brings, because we have many conferences, international events. Let alone next week we will start the European Film Festival, and which we will happily bring, and I think we'll be later on in that, but we will be also traveling around in the city with that. So I would see the political reporting. I would go to the meetings. I would be meeting diplomatic colleagues. I would go to international conference. There have been cases when I have 3 speeches a day on absolutely diverse and different subjects. There would be, I mean, the golden rule is listen, humbly listen, and talk less. Okay, this is exception. I talk more than you. Normally, I would on reverse.
It's fine.
No, this is for the job. I mean, this is not symmetrical in this sense, yes. But I would I would listen more than I talk, and I would digest what I have heard, and then I would do maybe, if necessary, to do some recommendations or reporting to the headquarters or to the people who have to know something more what's happening in the wider region or in the city. I mean, this sense, this city is very pleasant. I can walk in almost everywhere, and I like walking. For instance, in India, to travel between 2 next door cities, you have to take a plane and fly for 2 hours. So that's a different reality, maybe between the postings, as such.
So you mentioned the European Union Film Festival. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. My predecessors and pre-predecessors have been working obviously very hard, because I'm very happy that on my 35th year actually in diplomacy, we are celebrating 35 years of the European Film Festival here in Singapore. It's the festival is done by the European Embassy here, the EU delegation here where we sit right now. But the movies, of course, EU doesn't have the TV crews or cinema. Though we have a lot of cinema financing programs, we support the European cinema as such to fight actually the big competitors overseas, so also to keep the national character of the European cinema landscape. But there are member states which gives us the movies, and we screen them, and this is the 1 month long festival in different places. We have I think 29 screenings, and from 21 or how many 23 member states. Yes, so happily there, even not having not having a Latvian embassy here, we have managed to get a Latvian movie here. So
Great.
which will have a very special touch with you. So we are very happy with this, and we are very happy that also it will not be only based here in the center of in the city, but it will be also in your school. So
yes,
so and the Latvian movie will actually travel to your school, which I'm very happy.
Okay, great. So now this is maybe a bit of a personal question, but what is your favorite place in Singapore?
All right. Yeah, this is very difficult, because I was trying to really to find. I find my way on my weekends, and when I'm not like reading on Singapore, I'm trying to observe and dive into the very vibrant fabric of Singapore different districts. I like long walks. I have climbed Bukit Timah, which was quite an effort. It was rather a steep climb, but I also last weekend, actually, by the coincidence, I ended up almost next to your school, to the dairy farm where I was, which is across there, I think, the road in the park from your school.
Exactly.
And because I was doing the rail corridor on foot, so I did the entire rail corridor from north down to the port zone. So this is. I also very much like the of course the very rich inter-ethnic fabric here. I like the like really going through the small and narrow streets of Chinatown, of Geylang, and Little India, and of course having my personal experience in India, I can get some reminiscences of the smells and tastes and colors there. But I'm trying to discover as much as possible, because it's very rich. The culture is very rich, and I'm really that's one of the features of the diplomats, to be open to the different experiences and impressions from outside, and then try to filter it and to enrich yourself. And yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, and we're gonna head into our last question of the day. If there is a message you would like to give to people entering the world of diplomacy, or people passionate about diplomacy, what would that be?
Right. Be open-minded. As I said, listen more than talk, but that's all kind of, that's a technicalities. But the message would be really be open to the world. The world is changing. It seems that it's rotating faster, which is definitely not the case. But right now, when we are really in the communication diplomacy, it's every news are instantly reaching the furthest corners of the globe. If you would take the traditional diplomacy, even as recent as 40 years ago, you would still dispatch it by mail, the reports, or 50 years ago, somebody would travel on train from capital A to capital B to send a message or report, and it took 3 weeks to travel entire Europe, for instance, for a dispatch of the news from one king to another king, even 100 years, not even hardly 100 years ago. The world in that sense is very much changing, I think. So that's very important. I think it's the message really to you, also to the colleagues at the school. I think work on your education, because what we need a highly educated people with a deep emotional intelligence and with the developed critical thinking, because only critical thinking will help us especially in the age of artificial intelligence, to separate the truth from lies, intentional lies, mal-intended lies. So I think the critical thinking will be one of the skills that will be very important for even, I think, when you will start your studies. I think you will be extremely exposed to AI. I think you are already, and to get a kind of sober and mentally sound view on the world as it is, not through the lens of the social media on which work for their own interests, many of them, of course, and also through the AI, which will be then, we don't know where we will be in 5 years. We didn't know that it will be today. Even in diplomacy, we have the AI tools already at our disposal. So in that sense, the world will be much quicker. So the quick steps do not always require the super fast reactions. You can do it slower, more steadily, adding your own value of your personality, value of your thoughts, not relying on all the new machines that will be coming. I think the human factor will always prevail there, and also never lose the human touch. I mean, the human handshake or the bump on the football pitch or any exchange, in whatever circumstances. I think that will be value for forever. So that's not only in diplomacy, that's generally in life. Enjoyed talking to you. It was a fantastic experience also for me.
And thanks a lot for inviting me and for this beautiful present you gave me. And I hope maybe one day to see you again. And thanks a lot again.
Yeah.